Okay, I'm gonna start recording part 3. Uh,
Okay.
okay, it's recording 3 now.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay. Hello, Richard. Welcome back.
Hello, Sinclair, thank you for asking me back.
I didn't ask you back. You called me.
No, you called me.
I was in the middle of dinner.
This conversation is over. The area that you fight the Adjudicator in is called the Shrine of Storms. And it's a really interesting area to me because there are 5 archstones, and 3 of them are kind of constructed around like a personality. Like there's one person who dominates that area. So like Elant dominates Boletaria, and everything in Boletaria is about Elant messing around with souls and corrupting the kingdom. Latria is all about the old monk, who's this mad guy who's locked up the royalty and is experimenting on people and building his own demons. Valley of Defilement is kind of, but not really, but a bit about Australia and Gaal heading off to the valley on this pilgrimage to try healing it. Then you have Stonefang Tunnel, which is the fire level. And to me, and like a lot of people agree with me on this, that like that's the weakest part of Demon Souls. It's not like bad or anything, but it doesn't have like a hook to it because there's no real characters there. It's just a mine with some fire and a dragon at the end.
True.
Even though it talks about like it's the Archstone of the Burrower King, and it talks about them being like these dwarves who were, well, not dwarves, they were just called the Burrowers, but they're clearly supposed to be like fantasy dwarves, and they're digging and they're obsessed with getting all these the ore and things out of the mine, and it's kind of about greed that they just kept digging and digging until they dug up this dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And like they are themselves kind of turning into little dragon people. But other than that, like there's not really a strong personality or a strong hook to it. It's just here's the fire level. Right.
Right.
The closest thing to a character there is Grave Robber Blige, who is just a guy who sits around and says like, yeah, he basically just says he's come here to look for crystal lizards.
You mean ducks?
Yes, he's there. No. The salamanders are ducks. Crystal lizards are crystal lizards. Or crystal ducks.
Crystal ducks. Okay.
Crystal duck. So, Shrine of Storms is, I think, that idea done right, in that there's also not really a character in Shrine of Storms. Oh, sorry, no. The guy in Stonefang Tunnel is Skirva the Wanderer. He's not Grave Robber Blige. Grave Robber Blige is Shrine of Storms. Anyway, Shrine of Storms is sort of, I feel like that done properly, where there's also not a central character to it. It's just a place, but the story that the place is telling is a lot more interesting than like some people dug a hole and there was a dragon at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So the story behind the Shrine of Storms is that it's run by these people called the Shadow Men, who are a tribe of... They're like shaman sort of characters. The Shrine of Storms is where they take their dead to be buried. So as you descend through the Shrine of Storms, you're going through the process that the bodies go through as they're being disposed of and as they're being interred. So that's why there's skeletons everywhere. So the idea is that they first take a body to the Adjudicator. And the Adjudicator is this big blob thing. And the Adjudicator judges whether you are fit to pass him, or whether if you've sinned, the Adjudicator will eat you. And
what? That's
yeah,
intense.
that's why he's all fat, and that's why he has meat cleavers, because he cuts up bodies and eats them.
Oh, snap.
And that's why he has that very long tongue, because like if you put a body before the Adjudicator and he judges that they've sinned, it's the crow that judges whether they've sinned or not. And if the crow doesn't approve of you, then you are eaten by the Adjudicator, and that's it.
There's a crow in his head.
Yeah, that's the crow.
How does that happen?
That's what you're attacking. Like when you hurt the Adjudicator, he like falls forward, and then when you attack the top of his head, you're actually attacking the crow.
Yeah, I know, Richard.
Yeah.
I played the game.
I know, I'm just, yeah.
I
Yeah,
killed that boss very effectively. I
you
got him
did.
on my first
You
try.
did get him on your first try.
My question is, how does that happen? How does someone get a crow in their head?
Well, the thing is that the Shrine of Storms, the way it's described is that a lot of what's happening in the shrine is like a myth that's been brought to life by the demon souls that are spreading across the land. So the Adjudicator, the Crow, the Storm King, the sort of stingray beasts that are flying around, those are in the mythology of the Shadow Men. But because of the fog that's spreading and the demon souls that are corrupting the land, those have come to life. They've like been created out of the fog in the shrine.
Mm-hmm.
The Adjudicator shield, which you find in the Shrine of Storms, and that lists. It says, "Cowardly acts and the eating of birds must not be the deeds of a hero of storms." So if your body is brought before the Adjudicator and you've either been a coward or you've killed birds or eaten birds, then you are judged to have sinned and the Adjudicator eats you, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
If the Adjudicator if the Adjudicator judges that you're worthy, then you pass the Adjudicator. And your body is brought down into that long cave section. And that's why in that section there's those like reapers and spirits and things, because they're presumably the like, I guess, necromancers that oversaw the bodies being interred and the spirits that were left behind.
So basically, the Adjudicator fights me because I'm not worthy?
I know it's a thing in Egyptian mythology as well, that like what happens is when you die, your heart is weighed on a scale against a feather, and if your heart is heavier than the feather, then you're eaten by the sort of crocodile thing. It's similar to that, where like you're judged, and if you're a sinner, then you just get eaten. It's like the equivalent of like not going to heaven. You just get eaten.
You're trying to tell me my character was a sinner?
Well, the thing is, you were alive. And maybe if your corpse had been brought before the Adjudicator, it would have been fine.
Oh, okay. I feel better.
Yeah, that's all right. So, like, the old hero at the end of Shrine of Storms, that's like an old hero of the Shadow Men whose body has passed the test and been brought down and like kept in that room. That's why the spirit's there.
What?
You know, the boss of you fought him. You got him on your first attempt. The like big orange like spirit guy with the big like machete weapon.
Oh, like the giant.
The giant thing, yeah, and you had the thief's ring on, so we didn't know where you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is like an old hero of the Shadow Men who passed the Adjudicator's trial and was taken down there. That's his spirit.
Okay.
Right. And then you'll also notice that there are these platforms that have the storm beast things. They're like stingrays that are just landing on them.
Yeah.
So the idea is what's happening is that they bring the bodies out and they leave them on those platforms, and the storm beasts come and eat them and like devour them and pick the flesh off the bones. Which is a real thing. It's called sky burial. They reference it in Bloodborne with reference to Eileen. Yeah, it's a burial practice it's mostly done in like desert regions where there's not a lot of space to bury things. They will leave the bodies they're called towers of silence, and they leave the body on the tower, and then the birds just come down and pick all the flesh off. So it's like a hygienic kind of way of getting rid of the dead without burying them, because the birds, they'll just skeletonize them.
Yeah.
So that's what the Shadow Men are doing. That if you pass the Adjudicator's test, you're then taken out, and then the storm beasts come and they pick the flesh off your bones.
And if you fail, it eats you?
Yeah, I think that's the difference. Like, if the Adjudicator eats you, you're just gone. And I think the idea is almost that, like, as the storm beasts eat you, like, you're kind of reborn. You re-enter the cycle as, like, energy in the storm beast, and then when the storm beast dies, you like, pass on, and it's a big cycle of life and death.
So, like they eat you, and then they poop you out, and you're reborn?
I think it's close to that, yeah.
Why did you acknowledge that, Richard?
No, because right, I was thinking of this while I was playing it. There's a French animation, I've completely forgotten the name of it. But it's it is a similar thing. It's like these like strange aliens that live in this cliffside, and then when they die, they're taken out, and then they're sort of they're eaten by these like ray things, these like manta ray things, and then they're reborn as them, and then they're then hunted, and then the people eat them after they're hunted, and then when those people die, they're then reborn as rays, and it goes around and around and around. But I don't know if I'll be able to find it because I can't remember what it was called.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's the Shrine of Storms, and it's all done through like there's no real, you don't meet really any of the Shadow Men because they're all dead at this point, I think. But it's all communicated through like you as you descend from the top of the shrine to the bottom, you're following the procession that one of the bodies would have gone through.
That makes sense.
Another thing about the Shrine of Storms is that the characters there, like their Shadowmen designs that you see, they have the flesh cut away from their mouths. Like they have their lips cut off. You can see it with the Adjudicator where like there's this big patch of raw skin around his mouth, and then Old Hero is the same. He's got like his lips are cut off. And on the Archstone design for the Shadowmen's Archstone, like it's called, I think it's Archstone of the, I think it's just Archstone of the Shadowmen, but they have like, again, it's a human face, but the lips have been cut off. And it looks a lot like, I think they do it to look like a skull, that it's like a ritual sort of mutilation to make you look like a skeleton.
Go on.
Because you just would see the teeth. Like if you imagine a person without lips, it looks more like a skull. And there's a character called Longbow Ulan, who's referenced as one of the knights in Boletaria. And like it's slightly confusing because I think they were shuffling things around in terms of who was really the three bosses in Boletaria, which are Phalanx, Tower Knight, and Penetrator. Those are not so much implied, they're like basically outright said to be these are the three knights of King Alant who have been transformed into these monsters by absorbing too many souls. So then when you get to the run up to King Alant, there's three red phantoms. And those are the knight spirits. Like after you kill the demon forms, they're like they become red phantom versions of their original selves. And Ostrava. When you talk to Ostrava, he lists like here are the three knights of Boletaria, and it's Alfred the Knight of the Tower, who is obviously Tower Knight, Matas of the Lance, who is Penetrator, and Longbow Ulan, who this is where it gets confusing because Longbow Ulan is by process of elimination has to be Phalanx. And Phalanx does technically shoot a spear at you. So it's like, okay, maybe it's a bow. But when you get to the three red phantoms, there is a phantom with the scraping spear, which is Phalanx's weapon. And also the tower shield. So it's like that looks to be Phalanx and the Tower Knight at the same time. Like but then there's a phantom who just has the white bow and the Khaleej. And the white bow and the Khaleej are both items that you find in the Shrine of Storms. So they talk about Longbow Ulan and his legions. Of course, Ulan in the game is female, but Japanese and pronouns doesn't always play nicely when you translate them. So we'll just pretend they said she. Longbow Ulan looks to be someone who came from the Shrine of Storms, because that's where you find the weapons that Longbow Ulan has. So I'm guessing Longbow Ulan and the legions were like some kind of like archers from like the steppes or something. And they joined King Alant. Shrine of Storms also is very reminiscent of the Nightmare Frontier from Bloodborne.
Really? How so?
Because it's this island that's just surrounded by this fog and mist, and there doesn't seem to be a way to get to or from it normally. And it has these banners that flap in the wind that look almost exactly like the masts in the Nightmare Frontier. Where you look down, you see the masts flapping in the wind. Yeah, the banners in Shrine of Storms look a lot like that. So I think the design of the Nightmare Frontier was sort of very influenced by how well Shrine of Storms turned out.
That's cool.
Yeah. Another thing about Shrine of Storms is that, like, the Storm Ruler weapon that you fight the Storm King with, it doesn't do anything outside of the shrine. Like, it won't do that big, like, airblade attack thing.
Why not?
Because it says that, like, it only has that power in the Shrine of Storms because basically it's the same way that, like, all the myths of the Shadow Men are coming to life. That, like, some power is sustaining, like, the legend of the Storm Ruler, but it's only has that legendary power within the Shrine of Storms. And if you take it away, I think it can still, like, it still does a kind of ranged attack that can stun people, but it doesn't do the huge, like, arcing, like, sort of wind thing.
So is there anything else about Adjudicator?
No, it's just that Adjudicator is, like, they've really thought through how the Shadow Men's death rituals work, and Adjudicator is part of that.
It's pretty intricate.
Yeah, that's what I mean about it being, like, a successful version of Stonefang Tunnel, where, like, Stonefang Tunnel is, you're also descending through a space, and there's not really any NPCs there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just finding out about this culture, but the culture of the Burrowers is basically that they like collecting ore. And then there was one of them who was called the legendary Big M, who used to fight dragons, used to punch dragons to death.
One Punch Man.
Yeah, he's like One Punch Man. And he is implied to have become Flame Lurker.
Huh.
Like, he died and his soul or body or whatever became Flame Lurker. Or, like, maybe he just mutated into Flame Lurker with time. And then the Dragon God is... I think the way they explained that is that, like, the Dragon God was a skeleton, and then the soul sort of brought it back, like it was reincarnated and came back again. The one thing I'll say for Stonefang is that I fucking hate those stupid bug things, but they have thought through, like, the ecology of them. So, like, you will find their cast off husks lying around.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and, like,
really
you see, yeah. It's like that's the thing I like about Stonefang. It reminds me a lot of, like, Metroid, where they'll just do a little detail about, like, here's some bugs, and then just in the background you'll see, like, their nest or something that doesn't do anything, but it's just, like, to sort of reinforce this is a real place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does this Adjudicator relate to Adjudicator in Dark Souls 3?
It doesn't.
Well, it's a pretty specific name.
That's true.
So there must be a connection, Richard. What is it?
The connection is that the Ring City is for all the terrible characters in Dark Souls. So the Adjudicator ate them all. And the Ring City is inside the Adjudicator's stomach. The Adjudicator is like the TARDIS. He is bigger on the inside. And the Ring City is there. Actually, all of Dark Souls 3 takes place in the inside the Adjudicator. And it's all the worst characters from the Souls series that he's judged unworthy. And that's why none of it makes sense. It's not actually canon. And there's just the golden crow that's going bop, 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 bop. Like, bop, bop, bring back Patches! We should bring back the Ruined Sentinels! Bop, bop! Bop, bop, Zully and Elva are back now, walk!
Oh my gosh. That makes perfect sense. You have cracked it, Richard.
Thank you.
Now you will truly never have to make another Dark Souls video again.
Yes!
Today, you have achieved what you wanted the Bastard's Curse to achieve a year ago.
In this moment, I am euphoric.
That's it. It's time for all the lore hunters to retire. It's been solved. Go home, everyone.
Some power is sustaining like the legend of the Storm Ruler, but it's only has that legendary power within the Shrine of Storms. And if you take it away, I think it can still it still does a kind of ranged attack that can stun people, but it doesn't do the huge like arcing like sort of wind thing.
If I took that sword, that specific sword, and went to fight Yorm with it, would it still work?
Oh, Yorm and Stormruler. Why? I think we brought it up before, but there's a cut Dark Souls 3 boss that we don't really know anything about except that it was a giant bat.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking I think Stormruler is in the game because they wanted you to do like another Storm King fight with a giant bat.
Mm-hmm.
Because Wolnir is the same. Like Yorm and Wolnir both have. They have the way you're supposed to kill them is a weird gimmick, but then they still have like animations and like hitboxes and things that work without the gimmick. So like Yorm can be riposted. Like if you damage Yorm enough without the Storm Ruler, he like kneels forward and you can riposte him.
Mm-hmm.
And like Wolnir has like a complete. If you don't send Wolnir back by breaking his amulet, by breaking his bracelets, he has a totally different death animation, and like he has a hitbox on his back as well. Like it's like both those bosses have another way of defeating them that makes it seem like that was probably the original way you defeated them, and then they became a gimmick later on, because that original way is still in there, but it's so weird and obscure that like no one's actually going to do it outside of challenge runs. But it doesn't seem like they put it in there as well if you want to try it, because there's a lot of effort into it. So that was our weekly digression about how bad Yorm is.
Yorm isn't that bad though. He's okay.
He's disappointing.
I like his story though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy.
I know.
Yeah, he tried, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is, like, it's bad because it doesn't do Yorm justice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He should have been a great character, and he's not.
He should have had a great friend, and he didn't. What's his name?
Sigvard.
Sigvard, right.
Yeah.
Sigvard is like, you know, and I told you that before. Sigvard is like, oh, Yorm is my best friend, and he's not feeling well, so I'm gonna go and fucking murder him. That's not cool. Yep. That's not what friends do. I have a promise to keep. I'm gonna beat the shit out of Yorm. Like, no.
He owes me $20. I want to get it from him before he goes hollow.
20 rusted coins. Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add about Demon Souls? Because you're playing it for the first time now.
No, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I like it so much that I don't even read items. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just like, it's just cool. I just like it. Let's do this.
Demon Souls doesn't really rely on item text, though. There's like a few, but it doesn't become like a big deal until Dark Souls.
Let's see.
There's like one kind of plot twist hidden in an item, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more about just like the sort of like mood pieces and sort of figuring out.
It
Yeah.
feels much more like the environment is doing something to
Yeah.
your soul, you know?
Yeah, especially like Latria, where they don't outright say that like what's actually going on in Latria, but you gradually piece it together from everything you're finding.
Yeah.
They just say like the old monk is creating his own demons or something. But then the more you hang around there, the more you realize he is like this like Frankenstein thing where he's like stitching people together and like he's taking the prisoners from the cells and experimenting on them and throwing them in this giant like heart thing that's like,
The heart of Menses.
I guess this is a bonus topic, whatever, that we didn't plan. But like Latria is the Nightmare of Mensis is patterned pretty strongly after Latria. Like the way that it's all these sort of raised walkways with cages that go up and down, and the centerpiece is a giant like organ that's chained to the ceiling. But Latria feels more like a nightmare. It feels more like an unreal place than Menses, which just kind of feels like a castle. Because the PS3 wasn't as powerful. So a lot of Latria, you can't actually see it. You just see this sort of kind of sickly orange-green sky with these walkways silhouetted against it in the distance. And you can't see very far ahead of you, so you just sort of stumble around like trying to find footholds and stare. And the stairs just kind of like that stare up to the man-eaters.
Yeah.
Like, it's scarier than anything, I think, in Bloodborne, because it is just a staircase with no railing that just spirals up into the sky, and there's nothing supporting it.
It's very unsettling.
It's really unsettling, and it's not very wide, and there's monsters on it, and you're constantly in danger of falling off, and your whole time it's like, what is even keeping this thing up?
Yeah.
And also, like, just the way that the Latria is kept going by this sort of like yellow light. It's these yellow flames, but they put the yellow flames next to regular torches, and you can see the difference. Like, a regular torch is like a sort of comforting orangey red glow that looks like a fire, and then next to it there's this like, it looks like sulfur. It's like this kind of green, like off, it almost looks like urine colored like flame that just, it's sort of like, it makes you feel queasy to look at. And it's not even clear what's going on, and just randomly you will see like wings silhouetted in the distance as gargoyles approach, and it's so eerie and it's so creepy. And the fact that like when you go down to the, like, you cannot see what is down there because the draw distance isn't there, because it's not a powerful enough console. So like, if that were Bloodborne, you could just look down and see, okay, I am basically above a giant mass of blood and flesh.
True.
But what happens is you just get the lift down, and then when you reach the bottom, you realize like, oh god, what, I'm like standing in like a soup of internal organs, and there's these like centipedes crawling around.
Yeah.
And you're constantly like assaulted by these things you don't know are coming because the draw distance isn't there. You just see this like darkness in front of you, and suddenly like a hand will come out, and it's creepy as fuck.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Whereas like the Nightmare of Mensis, I like that area a lot, but as soon as you start from the lantern, you can just look over and see everything. You know exactly what's going to happen.
True.
There's no real surprises until the very end when you meet Yharnam. But like, yeah, just not being able to see where you're going. And even like the way it runs at a lower resolution, because you can't quite tell what a lot of things are until you're up very close to them, and you can see these like odd sort of like slime and sheen to things that you don't get if everything is very crisp and in HD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, like, Latria's, like, people talked about Bloodborne being survival horror influenced. And it kind of is, but also it's a game where the more you fight things, the stronger you get. So it's like you get pretty empowered by the end of that. And the only part of Bloodborne that feels like survival horror to me is Upper Cathedral Ward. Because the brain suckers there can paralyze you.
All right.
Doesn't matter what level you're on, doesn't matter how strong you are, they just paralyze you and they suck your insight out. And insight is much harder to get back than blood echoes. Unless you know how to exploit chalice dungeons, like if you lose like 20 insight on the way through Upper Cathedral, people have lost like 50 insight doing that area. You feel
God.
like there is a genuine loss in a way that, like, if I died 50 times, it wouldn't matter. If I died 100 times, it wouldn't matter. But if I get my insight sucked out, that's a genuine, like, I have to work to get that back, and I've lost something.
Kind of like that guy stealing your soul level.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that stuff like that doesn't happen that often in the series. Like, genuine, like, this is a... The closest would be Curse in Dark Souls 1. Because every time you get cursed, your hit points get cut in half.
Right, yeah.
And, like, before... You don't know this because you didn't play it when it first came out, but, like, initially, that stacked. Like, it wasn't just one curse, you're on 50%. You could get down to, like, 12% if enough curses hit you. And just have this, like, one hit and you're dead thing. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, like, Latria, the way the Mind Flayers paralyze you, they don't suck anything important out, but, like, that, it's genuinely disempowering.
Oh, yeah, I hate that.
Because, like, it doesn't matter what level you're on or what you're equipped with. If that paralysis thing hits you, you are paralyzed. And you can't do anything, and you have to wait as the thing approaches you and then grabs you and then lifts you up and then spears you through the head. So it does feel like it's a lot more disempowering than other areas.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh no, Richard, did you die?
No, I was thinking like that was 3.5 topics, I guess.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Well, I guess. Thanks again, Richard.
Thank you for asking me on.
I don't know what to say.
Well, I've got 169 hours of recording space left.
Oh, okay.
So if you wanna speak for another like 3 or 4 days, it's doable.
That's awesome.